have read is that actually the seizures of drugs have gone up, particularly at ports of entry, since we've seen a more secure border. Is that correct in what you've seen, that we've had an opportunity to seize more drugs at those ports of entry?
Speaking on behalf of HSI El Paso and our response to Customs and Border Protection, we're seeing increased cases as it relates to cocaine, and we're seeing increased seizures in cocaine.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, I had an opportunity to interact with some HSI agents over the weekend, just top shelf, first class. And to all of you and the men and women who work with you, thank you so much for what you do. And I think it's critically important right now that we continue to focus on this. We know that fentanyl death, fentanyl overdoses, fentanyl poisoning is the leading cause of death between the ages of 18 and 45 in our country. We have seen, obviously, the previous administration continue to kick the can down the road, and this administration is taking it serious, making sure that we are using every tool in our toolbox to keep Americans safe. When we look at the nexus between moving that fentanyl and drug cartels and gang members, I'd love to know from you all, any of you, how many drug cartels, gang members, the number, so to speak, do you feel like, and those agents kind of sort of working with them, do we have in the interior of the United States by your estimate? Anybody?
Do you mean individual groups, ma'am, or?
Yeah, like number of people that are associated with those groups, either drug cartels, gang members, et cetera.
Well into the thousands, ma'am.
Wow, 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 wow. When you are looking at the nexus and how this works, how the cartels utilize these gangs to move this product around the country, can one of you tell me a little bit about process-wise, kind of how they do that?
Ma'am, in my experience, the cartels, specifically the Mexican drug cartels, often use the street gangs in the United States as kind of their foot soldiers to carry out some of their dirty work, to carry out, retail distribution, things of that nature. I think, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record to keep going back to the Homeland Security task forces, but one of the things I think that's great about that and helps us address this problem is it allows every agency to bring their expertise to the table. I would reference, FBI's expertise in dealing with violent street gangs and that nature, HSI with the ports and with the chemicals, DEA with our expertise in cartels. I mean, I think we bring it all together to fight this fight.
And we really appreciate you all working together, utilizing your strengths to make sure that we're putting the American people in a safer and stronger position. And I commend President Trump and his administration for making this a priority. When you're looking at the supply chain of how this works, obviously we've talked a lot about China and China's role in these fentanyl precursors and coming here. Is there anything that we need to be doing to be more disruptive to that supply chain from your perspective?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. In HSI El Paso, we have one of our agency's national initiatives, Operation Chainbreaker. And we are looking at pill presses, pill dyes, molds that are being imported in. Obviously, you mentioned the precursor chemicals. The De Minimis Act is really hurting and harming us right now because anything under that $800 threshold is not being subject to search or customs inspection. So that allows these parts and pieces to come in. We're seeing significant numbers of pill presses, dyes that are being brought here. We've, as part of Operation Chainbreaker, we've found over 50 labs set up here in the United States that are now producing fentanyl.
Wow. Okay, when we're talking about China, obviously everyone, that's been well documented. DEA more recently mentioned India. Are there other countries or bad actors that we need to be kind of putting into focus here?
India is really the only player I think that comes up on the radar besides China. But let me be clear, like at a much smaller scale.
Okay.
I mean, our focus is definitely needs to be on China.
And as we look at what's happening across the country right now, what do you think the next fentanyl may be? Are you seeing something that is bubbling up and you feel like has the unfortunate opportunity to kind of catch hold here in the United States? And then if so, what can we be doing to be vigilant to warn that off?
I think, ma'am, one of the more emerging threats is not necessarily a new drug itself, but the combination of drugs. For instance, people have been taking xylazine, which is like a veterinary drug, and mixing that with fentanyl. Why that's so dangerous is it basically cancels out the effects of Narcan. So it's because it's not a synthetic opioid. We've had some pretty good, the public has had pretty good success with Narcan in reviving people and bringing them back from the brink of overdose. But when you put outside things into it as an adulterant to cut it all in the name of profit, it cancels that out. So it's very dangerous.
Absolutely. And last thing, what should we be doing to better target the financial networks that aid and abet the cartels, including their operation and presence here in the United States?
I would just ask for continued accountability from any type of financial institutions, right, that provide resources that can be exploited or when folks are complicit, but just additional support to law enforcement to abide by lawful process and things that we need for some clarity.
Well, thank you, and thank you again for what you do.